brilliant. We'll give you an overview to start with, and then we're going to give you a bit of an insight into each of the programs that we've mentioned. So I don't know if you can see people in the background. I've got Dr. Numi Buana here, Dr. Kevin Chetty's coming in to squeeze his hand. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. And Dr. Jessica Lewis. So we're the program conveners of the different masters programs.
So bear with me a moment. Right, so there's a bit of a problem with the screen, and also I'm just going to adjust the mic. So hopefully that's resolved that issue. Thanks.
Brilliant. So can people see stuff now? We'll keep going until you let us know you can't see anything. Brilliant. There's a confirmative. Brilliant. Okay, so let's get going. So welcome to the open day on our webinar. So UCL, as you might well be aware, has some very it is an interesting university. It's had a long history. It is often been cited as one of the universities that really has broken the mould and done things a bit differently. So it was founded in 1826, and it was the very first university to admit students regardless of their class, their race, or their religion. And in keeping with that, it was the first university to admit women on a sort of equal footing with men. So we're very proud of that tradition. And it was also one of the first universities to branch out from the traditional subjects of the universities of the time to include medicine, law, and engineering. So it's we're proud of that tradition. Okay. Bringing us up to the current day, it is one of the top universities in the world. Depends on which rankings you look at. Rankings are interesting, aren't they? But we do consistently perform very well on the different rankings, which obviously measure lots of different things. So we're in the top raft of universities. Best academic to student ratio in the UK, which again we're proud of, and performed very well in the Research Excellence Framework in 2014. A huge amount of research happens at UCL across the whole domain. It's one of the universities as well that has a broad range of fields. We don't just focus on in one area. We have the broad spectrum of sciences, social sciences and humanities. And some very notable academics, quite a lot of Nobel Prizes, which is a nice little accolade, and a very international and diverse student cohort. 150 different countries are represented in our student body across the college. So a brief history of where we are in this department. So many of you are going to be far too young to remember 2001, but in 2001 a very significant event happened in the UK with the murder of Jordanda, who was a presenter on BBC's Crime Watch. She also did a whole range of other things, and she's a very high profile media personality. And as a result of that, there was a fund that was established that was dedicated to ensuring that kind of thing didn't happen again. And as a result of that fund, the Jordanda Institute was set up at UCL as the very first institute that was devoted to reducing crime and making sure that there was a strong research base in crime prevention as well as national security. It was also the first university department that was dedicated to crime science, which is seeking, again, around prevention of crime, but very much more interested in the environment and how to prevent crime through behavioural approaches rather than focusing on the criminal itself. And my colleagues can probably build on that in a moment. Okay. So as I said, crime science is a bit different to what we might normally see in other fields that deal with crime events and criminal behaviours. So it's dedicated to reducing crime, not understanding it to just understand it, but to understand it to reduce it. We want to make sure that we're thinking about crime in a very scientific, in an empirical way. So a lot of our programs are very much based in empirical research and have a very strong research base. We're very, very committed to making sure that we're interdisciplinary. So it's one of these rare departments where we've got most members of the faculty have different first degrees to everyone else, and it means that we're forced and enjoy working together with our different backgrounds and different dialogues and different narratives to address these questions in a very holistic way. And the other thing that we're really, really keen on that we try and do is making sure that all of our research is informed by real-world challenges and problems. We're set in the engineering faculty for a very good reason, because we're seeking to solve these real-world problems and therefore have real-world impact. So that brings us on to the teaching. There are a range of different Talk Masters courses that we offer, which you can see on the screen there. So we've got the MSc in Crime Science, the MSc in Countering Organised Crime and Terrorism, the MSc in Crime and Forensic Science, and the MSc in Policing. We've also got our undergraduate programme, the BSc in Security and Crime Science, which started in 2016, so we've got 2 cohorts currently in that programme, and we also have a PhD programme on a 3-year or a 4-year model. So the resources that we are able to provide our students are broad and wide ranging as you would expect from a research active university, research focused university. So you've got access to world leading academics so you're going to be taught by the world leaders in those fields, who will be bringing to you both their research experience but also their consultancy and their engagement with stakeholders and professionals in their various spheres. There's access to state-of-the-art research in terms of our library facilities and the access that you get as a student at UCL to a whole range of databases as well as the online journals and our book-based. I've just been told to speak up, so I'm sorry for those of you who can't hear, so I'll try and project better. We offer online support with all of our programmes, and we also make sure that every single student has a personal tutor. And for the dissertation component of a master's programme, you will have a dedicated supervisor. We supplement all of our programmes with, so there's the general modules, but we supplement those with seminars and a series of workshops which are designed to offer broader ways of thinking about specific topics, and it's also a way that we ensure that we get professionals and those from outside of our department to come in and share their research, to share their practical challenges in the real world. And we also ensure that we're doing developing our teaching approaches, so we offer blended teaching approaches, and there's also the distance learning component which we make available. So I'm going to hand over at this point. We're going to talk more specifically about the individual courses. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Noemi Buana, who is the programme convener for the MSc Countering Organised Crime and Terrorism.
Right, switching over so I can be closer to the microphone. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm Dr. Noemi Buana, and I am the director of the MSc in Countering Organised Crime and Terrorism. Building upon what Ruth just told you, what is, I guess, the main thing to understand about the course is that this is not a traditional course that you might expect to find in another criminology department, or even a political science department, or international relations department, which are other places where you will find courses about terrorism and how to counter it. We are, as Ruth said, in an engineering faculty, so while we are interested in what you might call the knowledge base, the fundamental research about how terrorists do what they do and why they do it, I certainly study this myself as I specialize in the study of radicalization. At the end of the day, we're trying to gather this knowledge base together for the purpose of preventing, disrupting, and detecting terrorism. Obviously, not ourselves, but the intention is to form people who will later on go on to do something about the problem rather than just study it. And we are, as Ruth mentioned, often involved as researchers for the government, as analysts, as consultants, and that feeds directly into what we teach on this course. To achieve what I've just talked about, which is to create a knowledge base that is useful for practice, we combine a number of scientific disciplines. Again, I will not repeat what Ruth has already said, but you will have on the course a combination of political scientists, psychologists, engineers, mathematicians, psychologists, and so on, because we think one single discipline cannot tackle this problem, so you have to bring all the disciplines together. We have engineering sitting on top of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are, if you like, going to build gizmos. That's not really the idea, but it means that we adopt a sort of problem-solving approach. We think not only in terms of why questions, but how questions as well. And that is reflected in the kind of research methods that we teach that are very empirically minded. So when we, at the end of the year, when we start to ask students to think about putting a project together, doing some study of their own, some research of their own, dealing themselves with a problem that needs solving, we ask them to do this in a scientific and empirical way. That doesn't necessarily mean quantitative research methods. I know a lot of people think empirical means quantitative, and of course we train people in quantitative methods, but what it means is that that we want our knowledge to rely on data. And this data might be qualitative, it might be quantitative. The point is that we try to train you in such a way that you know how to collect pertinent data and you know how to analyze it with rigor. So as I said, and the reason why I have a slide stressing this is that the thing that I hate the most, and that the people who come onto this program hate the most, obviously, is to find out that they didn't come to the right place, and that the program was not what they were expecting it to be. Sorry, someone just popped in. I want to make it clear, we're not a political science program. That doesn't mean that we do not look at what has come out of political science, but we are not a political science program, and if that's what you're looking for, this is not what you're going to find here. We're not an international relations program, and we are not a critical studies program. We are a crime science program, I think keep in the back of your mind that we are sitting in an engineering faculty, and if you remember that, then you will probably be in the right mindset when it comes to knowing what to expect. What we want to do is to study terrorism as a scientific problem for the purpose of then designing countermeasures and counter technologies. And again, as I said, a technology is not necessarily a gizmo. It can also be a social program, a social intervention, but that is a kind of technology. So we draw from various problem domains. What that means is, well, we actually know a great deal about preventing crime, and our position here is that terrorism and organized crime are special kinds of crimes, but they are crimes nonetheless, and therefore, since we know so much already about the logic of prevention and disruption, how to gather evidence, how to evaluate interventions, how to analyze data, how to take a problem-oriented approach, based on what we know from criminology and crime prevention, but also other areas that you might not think about, like, for example, public health. We want to take all that knowledge we already have and then adapt it to the study of terrorism and organized crime. We aim this program at highly motivated students because a lot of your learning is self-directed. So if you expect to just sit in a room and have us just tell you stuff, and that will be the end of that, this isn't how this is going to take place. Of course, part of it is in a lecturing mode where you're sitting there and we're talking. But a lot of it that happens around those 2 hours that we spend together in each module each week, a lot of that is self-directed, not just you being in the library on your own having to read what we asked you to read, but you having to go out and collect eventually your own data and come up with a research design and identify a problem. And a lot of that will not happen if you are not sufficiently motivated, and motivation is not something that we can provide for you. You have to come with it already. We also aim this program at security professionals who are already holding responsibilities having to do with countering organized crime and terrorism, either in the public or in the private sector, and who want to further develop their knowledge. I will not introduce every single one of the people on the faculty, but there's quite a lot of us, and as I said, our background is very diverse, because you need this kind of diverse background to tackle the wide range of problems that you find under the heading of terrorism and organized crime. So as you can see, we have people specializing in radicalization and non-actor terrorism, but we also people specializing in situational crime prevention of child sex abuse, in preventing sex trafficking, in how to analyze intelligence. We are lucky enough to have among our lecturers people who have been practitioners, or some of whom are still practitioners and have very high levels of responsibility in the intelligence and law enforcement domains, and who will share with you their knowledge. And as Ruth said, we are a research-led university, and that is very important, because everything that we teach in the classroom is grounded in research, and often our very own research. That means we can share firsthand how we can buy this knowledge. In terms of the format, you have 5 core modules, which basically everybody has to take, and those are, as you might expect, one module on the fundamentals of terrorism, one module on the fundamental of organized crime, always geared towards thinking about those problems as scientific problems. And then one core module called Foundations of Security and Crime Science, which will introduce you to crime science. And if you've never done any criminology or never studied crime prevention, this will give those bases for you. And then 2 modules called Designing and Doing Research and Quantitative Methods that are more about how do you design a scientific project, how do you analyze the data once you have them. And those are often the modules that do not get people terribly enthusiastic in the morning. No offense, Kevin, who's behind me, has taught on some of them. But they are marketable skills. Even if you were to not go on to get involved in anything having to do with organized crime and terrorism, those are skills that you can take away with you and then apply to other problems and other domains of intervention. On top of those five modules, you will be expected to take 3 optional modules. And as you can see, they're diverse and yet made to be coherent. We have decided to go for coherence rather than offer you, say, 30 modules on pretty much everything under the sun. We have thought those modules through, and we have chosen them because they allow you to build upon the core modules and give the master's degree a flavor. So if you want to focus on, for example, you want to become a data analyst, you want to end up working in intelligence or for the police, taking modules like intelligence gathering and analysis, crime mapping, qualitative data analysis, all those very data analysis orientated modules will allow you to give a very strong flavor to the master in that direction. If you are more thinking in terms of involving yourself maybe in the private sector, for example, in helping companies analyze risk and prevent against the damage that terrorism and organized crime can do, then taking modules like risk and contingency planning together with prevention and disruption, and possibly something like introduction to cybersecurity or cybercrime will allow you to give a different kind of flavor to the master. So as I said, we've not aimed for a great number of optional modules, but we've aimed for modules that are coherent when put together. And finally, after the modules are completed, you are expected to complete a research project or dissertation where you can give even more of a personalized flavor to the master's degree by focusing on a topic that you care about in particular. You are expected to come up those are the slides for last year, so the dates are wrong, but you would be expected to come up around February of next year with a topic, and obviously you get advice, you get seminars to introduce possible topics to you, you get lectures to introduce possible topics to you. We don't expect you to come up with a topic out of thin air, although it's fine for you to come to the master's already interested in something in particular. And then you have the spring and the summer to conduct your research and write up your dissertation, which will be submitted in September. In terms of eligibility, we expect applicants to have usually an upper second-class degree, or the equivalent if you are not from the UK. In what we call a relevant discipline, we are fairly flexible about what we think is a relevant discipline, because as I think we've already driven that point home, we are a very multidisciplinary department. So I have had students with law backgrounds, I've had students with even literary backgrounds, I've had, you would be surprised about what is a relevant discipline. Usually what makes the difference that allows me to judge how suited you are to the course is how much effort and how well you manage to make your background fit with the description of the course in your personal statement. So do not neglect the personal statement, it is quite important. If you don't have an upper second class first degree, we also take in people who have 5 years or more relevant professional experience. So people who have already worked in the police, worked in intelligence gathering and analysis, even if their first degree is below the level of a 2-1. We also consider individuals with professional experience that have no first degree, but in that case, obviously, the professional experience needs to be particularly well suited to the course and be quite extensive, as we will have to basically write on your behalf to the university to make the case that you are suited to the course. And that's it for me. I will be staying here to take your questions later on if you have any. And now I'll pass on to Dr. Kevin Chetty to talk to you about the MSc in Crime Science.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Kevin Chetty, and I'm the program convener for the MSc in Crime Science. So I think Ruth and Noemi have kind of gone over the philosophy and ways of thinking and some of the background, so I won't spend too much time kind of reiterating those aspects. But one thing I just kind of do want to highlight is that, just again, we are very focused on real world impact, and what we do, we want it to actually make a change. And if you can just see at the bottom of the slide, the tagline for the UCL engineering faculty is change the world. So I just think, keep that in mind, because that's what we're all about. We're all about doing things that are going to have a real world impact. In the context of our department, it's about reducing crime and increasing security. Okay, so as part of the MSc in Crime Science, there are kind of 3 courses. So the main one is the MSc in Crime Science, but then we also have the Diploma in Crime Science and the Certificate in Crime Science. I'll go into more detail into those in a second, but the main ones, the MSc and the Diploma and the Certificate, are kind of scaled back versions of those. And there is a route where you can start off with the certificate, move to the diploma, and then to the MSc, and I'll talk you through that in a second. Again, I think Ruth has been through a couple of these points, and I won't kind of parrot these, but I think the key, the takeaway points from these slides are some of these words. So scientific theory and thinking, theories of crime, different discipline. We've hammered home this multidisciplinary approach which we take to dealing with the crime and increasing security. Critically assess, and I think that's an important point. There is analysing data and criticising qualitative data and looking at research, but being able to do it critically is one technique and skill which we're going to instill in you over the course of the programme. And then I suppose the last 2 lines, knowing what works in crime prevention and detection and how to conduct applied and theoretical research, are kind of 2 kind of actual skills which you're going to be able to take away from this course. And again, I'll mention in a second how these are very transferable. So whether or not you stay within the field after the course or move out into the kind of wider world, industry or whatever, these skills will follow you as you go and be extremely useful. So just in terms of the structure of the MSc in Crime Science, that's the master's program, it's made up of 8 modules in a dissertation. We have 4 core modules, which are foundations of security and crime science, where you effectively learn some of the fundamental traits and ways of thinking and kind of what underpins this field of crime science. You'll notice we'll use a lot of acronyms over the course. So DDR is designing and doing research, and QM is quantitative methods. But these form part of our compulsory 4 courses. So next to the 4 courses, we've got 4 optional modules, which are listed here. And I think Noemi has covered those in some detail. So again, I won't repeat. But one of the good things about this crime science module is it gives you the flexibility to tailor your learning and to tailor your course towards areas which you're interested in. I'll cover that in the next slide. And then finally, what makes the Masters is a dissertation project, which is kind of all about your interest in areas which you want to kind of learn more about and obtain data for and analyse and come up with kind of a viable solution or knowledge into that subject, is where your dissertation will be focused. So they're the components that make up the crime science course, and this is kind of the timeline in how they're in how you're taught. So what you can see is that at the beginning of the course, you pretty much focus on your compulsory modules, with one optional, whether you just choose to decide to do perspectives and organised crime or not. The compulsory kind of fits at the beginning, so you're in a big a cohort with many other students on different programs. As you enter term 2, you kind of move into your stream, which you've decided to you've chosen your optional modules to focus on, and so you kind of diversify a bit in terms of the areas which you're interested in. And then finally, at the end of the course, you kind of dedicate most of your time towards a dissertation. So you start thinking about it in term 1, and in term 2 you kind of get the logistics together and kind of lay the groundwork. But really in term 3, from April onwards, is when you focus on the dissertation. So as I mentioned, you can really, one of the good things about the MSc is that you can really focus your learning in the course towards your areas of interest. So we've just got a few examples here. So if, for example, you're very much into hands-on crime analysis and data science and things associated with big data, which is a very big buzzword at the moment, you can kind of choose your optional modules to reflect this. So you can choose things like crime mapping and spatial analysis, where you apply statistics to spatial data and generate maps and hotspot maps and these types of things, and qualitative methods, where you look at various methodologies and approaches, as well as software to do qualitative type analysis. And again, so if this is an area of interest which you want to focus your course towards, you can tailor your module selections to fit this. On another thread, if you're more interested in kind of the forensic type approach, and have an interest in the use of forensics and the use of evidence, then you can choose investigation and detection as one of your optionals, and again focus towards that area. As Noe mentioned, we have modules on certain types of crimes, such as organised crime and which are terrorism focused. So we have intelligence gathering and perspectives on organised crime for you to then focus on those areas. And then finally, again, another big area at the moment, and which is gaining significant traction in industry and the police and in the wider population in general, is cyber crime and cybersecurity. And we offer some modules on this. So again, if this is an area which you want to specialise in, then your optional modules can reflect this. Just to kind of start finishing up, many of our students, I think what the takeaway message from this slide is that many of our students go on to various parts of the security services and the security industry, from the police to the National Crime Agency, the British Transport Police, the security services, etc. So you can see, many students have chosen this course because they have an interest in security and crime, and they want to kind of further their careers in that domain. However, I did mention this idea of transferable skills, and many of our students have, after the course, have ended up going into kind of management consultancy or into the city, and the skills you can take away from this course is very valuable and useful in a wider breadth of organisation. So you're not restricted to a certain career path if you choose this course. You're likely to have chosen this course because you want to choose that career path, so that is open to you, and we have lots of contacts in these areas, but don't feel that you're restricted. And finally, we do have students who stay on if they're interested in research and teaching, and they can stay in the academic sector. And actually there are some examples of academics in the department at the moment who started off in the doing the MSc in Crime Science, decided to stay on, and they've now kind of worked through the system and are now academics in the course who will be teaching you. So just look at some study options. I mentioned that I've talked about the MSc. The postgraduate certificate is just a scaled back version of the MSc, and it consists of 4 modules. The diploma is effectively the MSc without the dissertation. So there is a route for you to start off doing the certificate, and then if you want to further the course and the qualification, you can transfer to the next stage until you get to the MSc. There's also lots of flexibility in how you can take the course. So you can go full-time and complete it in 12 months and do everything quite intensively, or if you want to do it on a flexible stroke part-time basis, there is opportunities to complete the course up to 5 years. So for example, if you're also working and you want to do the course part-time, there's options available to you there. And it's been mentioned before, but there are many of the courses offer a distance learning option. So if you're unable to be here in person, you can also take the course and look at the video lectures and kind of complete some of the elements remotely. So that's an option available too. In terms of the entry requirements, the minimum is a 2-2 in a relevant undergraduate degree. We've talked about the relevancy, and it's very broad, or 5 years of relevant work experience. And one point to just reiterate is, in the application you will have to complete a personal statement, and we place significant importance on this on the personal statement. So make sure you kind of make your case. And I think if you do have a 2-2, that is part of the entry requirement, but we expect you to make a case for yourself of why you're suitable to do this course and why you want to do it. So that's the end of the Crime Science MSc, and I'll hand you over to Professor Ruth Morgan, who will talk to you about the Crime and Forensic Science MSc.
Brilliant. You're back to me again, so I hope you can still hear me. So I look after the MSc in Crime and Forensic Science, which I do with a number of my colleagues as well. So let's move on. Okay, so the program aims of this program, again, you've heard that the other 2 programs are really, really distinctive, and this holds true for this program too. So, it's not showing up. I'm really sorry, that slide seems to have gone a bit squiffy. Essentially, this is a program that is looking at how forensic science fits in a holistic system that incorporates an understanding of the entire criminal justice system, as well as understanding, having a really holistic crime science approach as well. So it is one of the only programs at a top world-leading research-led university that offers this kind of material. It's the only program in the UK who has the aim to produce the next generation of scientists who can work within this interdisciplinary and holistic sector, right the way through from crime scene through to court. And it's the only program that offers research-led teaching, so everything we teach you is based on empirical research that we are all actively engaged in. So our big emphasis is on what science is. Professor epistemologically as well as practically. What crime is, how can we understand it, what do we know about it, and what more do we need to know about it? And how should forensic science fit within that framework to be effective and to be able to offer the tools that it needs to the justice system. So it's a course that's designed to give you a really strong theoretical base that you can then springboard off to a whole host of other different areas. So you've seen this program structure before. So for this MSc program, we have 5 core modules and then 3 optional modules. And you can see that those core modules are ones that you've seen before in Term 1. So Foundations of Security and Crime Science, Designing and Doing Research, and Quantitative Methods. For this program, we have 2 additional core modules that run in Term 2. So Understanding and Interpreting Forensic Evidence and Law and Expert Evidence. So you can see that those core modules are really designed to build on that premise of giving you that theoretical foundation as well as incorporating the full gambit of fields that impinge on forensic science. We also have a series of optional modules, so you're allowed to take 3 of these, and again, as the other programs I've mentioned, you can really tailor these to build on your existing interests, perhaps from your first degree, or branch into areas that you are interested in getting more grounding in. A number of these do have prerequisites, and it's a case that we engage with our students and work out with them what their previous subject backgrounds are, and therefore which modules are going to be most valuable and helpful for them. But you can see we've got a whole range of things. So we've got modules that look specifically at particular techniques, so that would be forensic geoscience, forensic archaeology, and we're also introducing a new module next year on forensic biology and DNA interpretation. And then we've also got some more generalised modules, so how do we deal with evidence in a case? So case assessment and interpretation for forensic scientists. How do we deal with evidence at a scene and at the crime scene part of the process? And that would be covered in our practices of crime scene investigation and expert testimony. So I'm very happy to talk about those other, I'm just aware of time, so we can talk about these other modules if there are people who are interested in them in the Q&A. So I'm hoping this next slide works. No. Okay, so this slide, if you can imagine with me a whole range of different subject matters, subject areas, which are all plugged into the Centre for the Forensic Sciences, which is the research institute that this Masters has really sprung from within the Department of Security and Crime Science. So we have links with geography, biology, statistics, law, chemistry, I might have said, earth sciences, psychology I might have already said, sorry, but a whole host of different departments within the University College London, and they have some input into this programme. And in the middle there you can see the external professional stakeholders that we engage with. So Principal Forensic Services, who are very involved in our case assessment and interpretation optional module, Bon Solon, who are very involved in our crime scene investigation module, Westminster Police, Forensic Analytics, and Foster and Freeman, who engage with us and help us develop really great dissertation projects with our students. So you can see that what we're trying to do is give you that broad theoretical base from a truly interdisciplinary take on it with the different subjects, but also instilling that real-world casework problem-solving aspect by working with professionals who are facing this on a day-to-day basis. So alongside the modules, what we also try and do is give students a really strong way of beginning to build their networks in this field and get a real feel for what's out there. So we run a seminar series throughout the first 2 terms every week, and we get a series of different people in to speak. So it will be researchers from other universities who are working in forensic science, and we get a whole range of professionals who are working in forensic science, whether that be within government groups or whether that's independent private companies. So we get the full range from those working in how do we interpret and use understanding our cognitive functions to interpret evidence effectively, through to the Centre for Advanced Science and for applied science and technology, CAST, who bring in a lot of their state-of-the-art equipment that they're using at the moment to ensure security and detection of high-profile crimes. So we had drones and VR this year, which was great. So that's the seminar series, really designed just to give you as much of a chance at building those networks and seeing the full breadth of forensic science within that holistic crime science framework. So I mentioned that we have a unique approach to forensic science, and again this slide hasn't worked. So again, if you can imagine, think of the forensic science as a process. We've got the crime scene where things start. We then identify important exhibits at a crime scene and we analyse them in the lab. That's the analysis phase. We then have to interpret what that evidence means, and then we have to present it either as intelligence to an investigator or as evidence to a court. So those are the 4 stages, and what's happened in forensic science is that we've got a lot of work happening at the crime scene, and we're getting really developed and very accurate and state-of-the-art approaches at the crime scene happening. We've also got a lot of work happening at the analysis stage, so the development of technology that can get better and more accurate and quicker analyses of the evidence that we've collected. And we're also beginning to see a lot of work happening in how we present that evidence, particularly within the law community. But what we're really lacking is this part in the middle here, which is where interpretation should be sitting. And that's been really highlighted by a number of different policy makers, but most recently the UK Forensic Science Regulator, who acknowledged that a huge amount of interpretation in forensic science is based solely on the practitioner's opinion, and that's going to lack consistency and reliability. And she goes on to make a real call for having the data that can support interpretation to get that empirical evidence base. And that is really where we're focused. We're really focused on making sure that the research can happen that can underpin that critical part of the forensic science process. So by the end of the MSc, I'm really nervous this isn't going to work either. No, that's not worked. What we hope is that our students have a very good and deep understanding of the key principles of crime science and forensic science and how they interact. They've got very comfortable with making those connections between seemingly different disciplines and making very creative and innovative solutions to real-world problems. We hope that our students have a very good grasp of the conceptual frameworks that are important in forensic science. So we're really thinking about the critical thinking skills that you need. And as Kevin said, that means that you have a really great suite of techniques that are applicable to both the forensic world, the crime science world, but also much broader than that, where critical thinking is a very sought after commodity in graduates. The thing to be really mindful of here is that this is not a program that is going to equip you to be a forensic scientist. It is not going to be a program where you develop strong analytical techniques and skills. It is going to, as I said, it's really focusing on the interpretation aspect. So if you're looking for an analytical chemistry, forensic science at MSc, this is probably not going to be the program for you. In fact, it almost certainly isn't the program for you. But if you're interested to see how that fits in within the holistic framework and how we can make sure that the analysis that happens in the lab is effective and developed in the right ways going forward, then this might be something that is of interest. Okay, our entry requirements. So we ask for a minimum of a 2-1 in a relevant discipline. We ask you to present your CV and a personal statement. We're looking for students who have got broadly defined science in their background. So often that will be a science undergraduate degree, but as my colleagues have said, we do deal with every single case individually, and if you feel that this is a course that you would like to do and that you've got the relevant quantitative analysis background, whether that be a maths A-level or international equivalent, or you've done some quantitative research methods within your undergraduate degree, make that really clear in your personal statement. But as we said, a minimum of 2-1, and we also have that ability that if you've got 5 years of relevant work experience, that we can consider that too. but do make sure that your personal statement fully addresses the cause. Why do you want to do this program? What is it about this program that means that you don't want to do other programs? What is it, because this is such a unique course, and how do you meet the requirements, and what are you going to use this program for? So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Jyoti for the MSc in Policing.
Thanks, Ruth. Thank you. So I'm here to talk about the MSc in Policing, and I'm the program convener for this program. So the main target audience for this particular program is serving law enforcement officers, police officers, or professionals working in related law enforcement agencies. The target audience is people who are in the police forces, who are interested in moving up the ranks. It's part of the new police and educational qualification framework that is being introduced by the College of Policing later this year. And it requires that officers who want to rise above a certain rank in the police services in England and Wales would need a level 7 qualification, which is a postgraduate degree. But not just that, this is meant for officers who are interested in developing themselves as managers, as leaders of a force, and also in adopting a much more scientific and evidence-based approach to their particular profession. The eligibility criteria for applying to this and being admitted on this program is a bachelor's degree in a relevant discipline, equivalent to a lower second-class degree, or 5 years or more relevant professional experience. And in this case, a relevant professional experience would be in one of the law enforcement agencies or in the police. The program ethos, this is again not working. So the program ethos is to develop a professional police officer, and it rests on three columns. One of them is developing critical thinking and a problem-solving attitude. The other one is developing research skills. By that we mean that you do conduct a research dissertation program, but the aim is not to create an army of police researchers. The aim is to create police officers who understand and can appreciate critically appraised research and are intelligent consumers of the evidence that exists and intelligent commissioners of appropriate police research. So it's by doing research you can understand what good research is, so that when you go on to back in your jobs, you're able to commission good research. You're able to look for appropriate evidence and apply it to the specific local problems that you're facing. And the third, this links in with the third column, which is developing an evidence-based approach. So the whole move towards professionalizing the police service is developing that evidence-based approach, and this program is intended to develop those kinds of professional police officers. The aims of this is really embarrassing. Yeah, the aims of the program, as I said, was to integrate research and education to prove practical policing. It is an interdisciplinary approach. All my colleagues have talked about how this particular program has an interdisciplinary approach to solving specific problems that police officers face. It's the development of an evidence-based approach to address global challenges, and the aim is to equip police officers who are good with the appropriate managerial skills who are going to go on to become police leaders in years to come. The program structure and study options. Again, this program, the MSc, we have the same sorts of options available. There's a certificate, a diploma, and an MSc. But the MSc in policing consists of 8 taught modules and a dissertation. Of those 8 taught modules, this program can be done full-time over 1 year, or can be done in a flexible modular manner over 5 years. So the whole aim is to enable professionals who are working to combine that with their studies on a part-time basis. So we'll do everything to make that as easy a process for serving police officers. We kind of understand you've got work commitments that can be quite sudden, and emergencies do come about. So we structure the program to make it as easy for you as possible to complete it. We also have an option whereby you can both attend lectures when you can, but also those lectures that you're unable to attend, or those modules that you're unable to attend in person on campus, can be done by distance learning. So it's a combination of attendance plus distance learning, and it has a slightly unique feature which I'll talk about in a minute. We do, like the other programs, we have 4 modules per term, and then a dissertation over the summer term, which you will complete with the help of supervisors and practicing professionals. So the core modules for this this MSc shares in with the other MScs in the department. 2 of the modules are the same. So Foundations of Security in Crime Science. Again, we would like everyone who graduates from this department to have to speak a common language, to understand the terms associated with crime science. So the Foundations of Security in Crime Science is a compulsory module. This is also an opportunity for police officers to interact with and increase their networks with other postgraduate students on all our other courses, and that works really well, we've found. The other optional module would be a choice between quantitative research methods or designing and doing research. So depending upon what your personal research inclinations and your strengths in terms of research methods are, you can choose either the more quantitative research methods or the more social sciences relevant designing and doing research module. There are 3 bespoke modules for this particular master's that are compulsory. Models of Policing for Crime Reduction, Police and the Public, and Ethical Policing. So these 3 modules are again trying to, are based in an evidence-based approach, and will involve lecturers who have been, who have a range of experience, who have been practitioners themselves, or who have worked very closely with policing agencies and police officers to put some of these ideas into practice. And it is grounded in ethical policing and principles of procedural justice. So these are all the approaches that the 3 compulsory modules will adopt. We then have, students can have a choice of any 3 optional modules. Some of them are, again, common and open across some of the other MScs that my colleagues have talked about, but we have 2, the 2 modules in red are the 2, again, bespoke modules that are offered for the MSc in Policing students. These 2 modules are run as residential modules, as intensive 1-week residential modules. So the management skills for police leaders we run alongside with lecturers from the UCL Business School and Management School. So that particular module talks about management skills for police leaders. The second optional module is on hotspots policing, which is again led by experts in the field of hotspots policing. These would run over 1 week, either in February or in April during the Easter break. So that makes it easier for people who are doing the master's distance learning to actually come to UCL and spend a week here to interact with the academics and with other students. Again, depending upon the area in which you work or the area in which you want to develop your career, there are a range of options, and you can choose your optional modules to suit your requirements or to suit your personal development in the areas you would want to work. So areas such as cybercrime, organized crime, investigation and detection are all areas that might be of interest and relevance to police practitioners. The Empirical research project, again, like all the other masters, we have world-class supervision that we can offer, industry partnerships. So we run specific dissertation modules run by police researchers from MOPAC, that is the Mayor's Office on Police and Crime. And the whole aim would be of your empirical research project to add to the evidence base. So you could pick up a problem that your particular force or you have faced in your working experience and research it with the help of academics. Our approach towards evidence-based policing is wider and much broader than what is traditionally understood to be evidence-based policing, which is restricted to randomized controlled trials. Here at the Giordano Institute, we believe that the evidence-based and the experimental approaches go beyond randomized controlled trials, and we do encourage quasi-experimental and qualitative research projects, which can, in their own way, add to the evidence base and improve operational policing. The outcomes we hope is that we will be able to develop practitioners who can deliver efficient evidence-based practice. We hope that you will be able to deliver and develop your critical and problem-solving skills. Definitely expect an increase in managerial and leadership skills. And we hope that all of this is grounded in an atmosphere of ethical practice and policing that is grounded in procedural justice. I would now hand over to Amy, who will talk about some of the general information about applying to these master's programs.
Hi everyone, my name's Amy. I'm the Teaching and Learning Administrator for our postgraduate programs. So we did have a couple more slides that's got some general information on it, but to be honest, most of it you can find on our website, or you can drop us an email to ask about them. Because we've run slightly over, I think it might be good if we just move to the Q&A now. So we've got all of the program administrators for the master's programs. We've got the academics who lead the programs, and we're also lucky enough to have one of our students with us. So if you've got any questions that that you think one of the students can answer, then please do type them in now. And we'll see. Okay, so we've had a question about the split between the number of face-to-face and distance learning students on the Crime Science course. So Jo is the administrator for that, and she might have a better idea of numbers. So, Jo, what are your thoughts?
I think we've got about we have more distance learners on the counter organised crime and terrorism one, but I would say in crime science we have maybe about 3 possibly.
Yeah, just to add to that, our philosophy here is with the distance learners. So the split is there are a small number of distance learning students. However, we've built the courses and we use the term blended learning. So whether or not you're a distance learner or a residential student here for the classes, your interaction with the course should be quite fluid, and it doesn't. It shouldn't make much of a difference if you are a distance learner and you have to do things remotely. Access to the material, access to the video lectures, etc. It's quite seamless to jump between the two. So I'd just say if there are any potential distance learning students out there, don't be put off by the fact that you're not going to be here in person. This approach we use to blended learning through e-learning technologies enables a seamless comparison between the two, and then so whether or not you're here or not, you still have that, hopefully have that same level of interaction with other peers on your course through the forums, as well as your module tutors, either via things like Skype or one-on-one conversations on the phone. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much. You shouldn't feel too disjointed from the course if you're a distance learning student.
Okay, and then Alex has asked if it's a disadvantage to apply later for the courses rather than sooner. So again, this might be one for the conveners, because generally you'll be admissions tutors as well. So is there a disadvantage to applying later for the programmes?
The programs are uncapped, so we don't have a set number that we're aiming towards, but obviously because we want to maintain the quality of the teaching, there may get a point where we think we have too many students or made too many offers already. So I would say I wouldn't wait for the last minute. Also, you never know what might happen. You might not get your references in time and you need more information. It's better to give yourself some time, but I would say as long as you apply before the beginning of summer, you should be fine. The other thing with summer, obviously, is that people go away on vacation and you might not have anyone here who is there to answer your questions. So my advice is give yourself the time to put together a good application, but don't wait until the last minute. Also, I don't know if this is, I can't remember if this has been said, but we have a small number of scholarships, and they have a deadline that is earlier than the course's deadline. So the course's deadline is the 31st of July, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's changed this year, but I think that's what it is.
I think that is right.
So 31st of July, while the scholarship deadline is usually the end of April. So if you're wishing to apply for one of the scholarships, you can't wait past the end of April.
Okay, thanks, Marie. So Jordan's asked a question about the dissertation.
So I'm interested in the MSc COCT. I know the dissertation is February to September, but are the assessments and exams taken before this or at the end of the program? The assessments are all the way through. So you have a first set of assessment that is, so the assessments I'm talking together, exams and coursework, that is things like essays or research or mini research projects for some modules. They tend to be clustered at the end of the first term, so right before and right after Christmas. And then again, you will have a set of essays that will be due right after Easter. And then you may have 2 or 3 exams that will take place in May, June.
Charles has asked whether the MSc Policing is available part-time distance learning. So the answer to that is yes. It's available distance learning, and it's kind of a technical difference between calling a program part-time and modular flexible. So we actually the program is actually set up as a modular flexible program, and this really is only important if you're applying for funding. So a lot of the funding that's available through kind of the UK government will only be available to full-time or part-time students. Modular flexible programs are taken over is it up to 5 years? Is that right? Yeah. So you can take it between 2 and up to 5 years. So part-time generally is up to 2 years. The answer is yes, it's available distance learning. Any other questions? Any questions for our student? He's very knowledgeable about the workings of being a student here at UCL. So Charles asked whether students are eligible for DSA and relevant tutor support. DSA, disability allowance, I think that's right. Yeah, okay. Yes, I think you are. It's probably worth checking on the government website for that, but I'm pretty certain that's fine. UCL's also got a disability services team who you can meet with when you arrive here. Yeah, if you need things like one-to-one tutor support, if you need someone to come to the lecture with you and help you write notes, they'll arrange all of that for you. So when you actually apply, you've got the option of disclosing if you have a disability, if you need some sort of support, and then they'll contact you to arrange a meeting. You don't have to disclose it in your application if you don't want to, so you can make an appointment when you get here with them. But yeah, they're generally very helpful, and they'll provide you with the support you need, and they'll let the department know what support you need as well. Alex has asked if living in London is really expensive for general living. So Alex, our student, might be the best person to answer that.
It is. It is. It's pretty expensive. I'd say travel costs are the biggest expense, or the biggest difference in expenses that you'll experience. Food as well, but that's a habit thing. But yeah, travel expenses to and from university are significant, and that's something to consider if you're looking at housing in London as well. So you might get a cheaper deal in the end if you decide to move close to university and don't take the underground or the bus. So that's something to look into.
Thanks. Okay, so Lorena has asked if there's any books and things that we can recommend, as she already has an offer for countering organised crime and terrorism. So I think there is a reading list that we can send that her. Yeah.
Yes. If you email, we will send you the reading list.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put the email in here. Yeah. So if you do have any questions afterwards, then you can just drop us an email there. And yeah, Lorena, if you just send us an email, we can respond with a reading list for you. No problem. Okay, yeah. Okay, does one of the tutors mind answering Alex's question about whether... Oh, okay, this one's more for brief. So Alex would like to know if the course is heavy on reading. And I will answer the question in the professional services.
So on the MSc programme?
Yeah, so Alex has asked crime and forensic science.
So I think this is where what Lorena mentioned about being self-directed, it does come into play. So yes, we do expect you to do a reasonable amount of reading around the subject. So we often see lectures as being springboards to give you a bit of a framework, and then students go off on that basis and explore other areas that have come up in those lectures that are interesting, and obviously have a wide range of I'm not quite sure. Heavy is obviously quite a qualitative term, but we would expect a reasonable number of hours per week on every module that you would be doing your own reading and research to ensure that you're getting as much out of the lectures and the contact time as possible. Does that help?
Okay, well, we've got a couple more minutes, so if anyone does have any more questions, let us know, and then if not, we'll sign off. And we'll post the slides and things on our website, so there'll be a link to all of the content from this once the session is finished.
And I guess, yeah, if there are any other questions that come to mind, just drop us
Yeah, and
on
yeah,
that
do email us.
SCSF. So it will depend on how many modules you're taking, but for every module there'll be a 2-hour lecture or 8 hours. So if you're doing 4 modules a term, there'll be 8 hours direct contact. But there might well be additional time where we ask you to engage in forums or do group work. Sometimes there'll be some modules have tutorials, and we obviously have additional seminars, which we hope students make the very most of, because obviously they are really, really valuable for giving that extra meat to the bones. Would that resonate with you?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Students confirmed. Is that right?
Okay. Okay, so if we've got no other questions, we'll shut the session down. Thank you everybody for joining us. We hope you found it helpful. And yeah, as I said, we'll post the link to all of the slides and things on our website shortly, and we'll send you all an email so you know where to look for them. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.